Hey guys, we're the Hard Time Strongman podcast, sharing of a bear class and man, and today we are going to talk about estimating range. The episode is called Range Finder. References for today: Armchair Sniper, Good Old Farmer's Almanac, and FM 23-10 Sniper Training. All those links will be in the description for y'all to view at your discretion, at your pleasure. So, purpose for today, we're going to teach the skills necessary for you to be able to locate and engage targets of opportunity and just eyeball it. I mean, you should be able to do this as a adult thing, but more tools in the tool belt.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I I feel like everyone can intrinsically do this to a point. Some people are better at it than others. I remember having to teach kids how to do this, and like, ask them, all right, how far away is that that brick building? And they give me a number. I'm like, okay, walk it out.
Yeah,
Just
this
maybe get a physical call on how far something actually is.
right, and this does tie in a little bit to land nav as well, because you got to be
Oh,
able to
absolutely.
terrain associate. Like if you don't have a rangefinder, your map's your next best guess. I guess for lack of better terms. So you got to be able to
Especially if
terrain
you're just
associate.
opening a map for the first time, you're like, okay, I see this, and this. Where the hell am I? Ballpark. You need to be
Yeah.
able to at least get somewhere, somewhere in the right area.
Oh,
But
dude. Yeah, I still remember the first time I opened up a topographical map when I was a kid, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm looking at. This is weird.
yeah,
I mean, now I get it, but still, yeah, it's getting into subjects like this is kind of a bit. I don't know. I feel like you can get a false sense of security going into something like
mm.
this because I mean, rangefinders are becoming more and more common. I mean, hell, they have them in golf. They have them obviously for shooting. Um, you can use them in engineering. There's a lot of practical applications for rangefinders.
Well,
So
the
it's
the technical aspect of it, the equipment aspect of it, yeah, I agree. People are accustomed to having stuff available to them. But
Mhm.
also, like I was joking earlier, people have a general idea of distance just from living, and unless that's tested, like you said, you have a false sense of security there. Unless if you know your stuff and you have several ways to test that, then who knows? Especially with something like shooting, like what we're primarily talking about today, right? You think of the science behind this, like putting a projectile like that going thousands of feet per second on a target who knows how far away. There's a lot of math that goes into that, and if you screw that up, it's going to be exponential.
oh yes,
Like we talked about in our land nav class, shooting an azimuth, this is the difference of a foot and a football field. You could be if unchecked, you could royally screw yourself.
oh yes, God yes.
So, with that being said, let's kick it off with factors affecting range estimation. So, factor number one, the nature of the target. So, an object with a regular outline, like a house or a building, is going to appear closer than an object with an irregular outline. So, an outline that's like a grove or a clump of trees, something that's not very defined. A target that contains or that contrasts its background appears closer than it actually is. So,
Makes sense.
uh, So a black silhouette on a white wall is going to look closer
Yeah.
than it actually is. That's just how your that's to do with how your eyes take in light and just you know how we perceive our vision. Um, and a partly exposed target appears farther away than it actually is. Once again, your body's trying to make sense. Your eyes are trying to make sense of what it sees. If it doesn't have a full picture, then that's going to affect your depth perception.
Right. And much like the nature of the target, then you have your nature of your terrain. Terrain's a different animal. So as your eye follows the contour of the terrain, it tends to overestimate distance targets. Terrain can be a fickle thing, and so if you're observing over like say smooth terrain, like snow or sand or water, it does cause your vision to sort of underestimate distant targets. So, I mean, without getting too much into it, water's a different monster because you're on a moving if you're out there on the water, your platform, your ship is bobbing up and down, side to side, and also your target is also doing the same thing. So it's very easy. It's very, very easy to call out a wrong distance.
Well, I mean, think about that. I mean, you have the horizon, which is in your eyes a
Right.
constant. You have
Right.
the water and the waves, which are not constants. You have your depth that's getting screwed over. You have, glint and shine off the waves. I mean,
Yep.
it's a lot for your brain to try to process.
Right. And you run into the same thing also with sand and snow because I mean, Jesus, if you've ever heard of seen or experienced snow blindness, it can screw with your depth perception like no other. And of course,
Yeah.
you've
So
seen the old cartoons of like people seeing oases, oasi.
Oasis,
I don't know the
oases.
plural of oases in the
I have
sand
no
out in
idea.
the distance, and they keep going towards it and keep going towards it, and it's just not there. I mean, that's because of heat radiating from up from the ground and distorting your vision, and that will completely screw over your distance calculations for sure.
I was gonna say I have two stories on that. So when we were
Do it.
road tripping from here back home to Oregon, we traveled through Nevada, which 10 out of 10 don't
Mm,
recommend. That was
yeah.
terrible.
Yep.
Um, felt like I was on a freaking treadmill because we went down into this depression down this road, and the road went on forever. It was just straight, and I'm like, we're gonna freaking die here. Like this
Flying.
road does not end. Flying 90 miles an hour, nowhere, going nowhere.
Yeah.
Like
I 10 out of 10 recommend flying into and out of Nevada. Don't ever drive through it.
it was miserable. And then the other one, not a personal story, but I grew up in Oregon and Crater Lake. Um,
Ooh.
when they had, yeah, so when they had helicopters that would fly over the water, they
Mhm.
actually had one crash into the water because the pilots were looking down into the water. It was so clear, and their depth
Ooh.
perception got screwed up. They actually went right into it, and
That's crazy.
they were never able to recover the aircraft. It's too deep. They haven't been able to venture down
Oh,
there.
that's right. That's a deep lake.
Hmm.
Yeah, the water
So yeah,
does not give up its
scurry.
dead.
Yeah,
Mhm.
scurry. Also, you have to think that so like who knows how deep it is, but just your eyes trying to perceive that depth. Good luck.
Yeah. Oh,
Good
yeah.
luck.
Okay. So, final 2 points on nature of terrain. If you have a target downhill from you, it's going to appear further away than what it actually is, and your calculations on how to hit that target too are gonna be
Oh, it's gonna
yeah.
screw. It's gonna be screwy. Math
Mm,
sucks.
yeah. Like, dude, yeah. And of course, the opposite targets uphill from you are going to appear closer than what they actually are. And of course, shooting uphill is also a pain in the ass.
uh, Another monster. Yeah.
Hmm.
Light conditions. So the more clearly a target can be perceived, the closer it appears. It's like we were talking about, like with the contrast or blurry images. The more clearly you can see a target, the crisper that image is, the closer it's going to look like to you. When the sun is behind you, your target's going to look closer than it actually is. And the reverse is true. So if the sun is behind your target, then one, it's going to be more difficult to see your target, and two, it's going to look farther away. You look like you had a thought.
No,
No
no, not
thoughts
at
to be
all.
had.
No,
So
not really.
that leads into our methods. So methods of range estimation. We have map estimation, the 100-meter method, the football field method. appearance of objects, bracketing, flash to bang, middle relation formula, range card, laser rangefinder, and combination method.
So map estimation. For this, it's pretty simple. You're going to need a map and a good estimation and understanding of where you and your target's locations are. Pros to this, so it's accurate. Obviously, you're using a map. As long as you know where you are and your target is, it's going to be accurate. This is very useful for if you're calling for fire, if you're doing a range card, uh, stuff like that. It's
Because it all leads into each other.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Cons of this, I mean, obviously it necessitates having equipment. So your map, compass, protractor, map pins, map markers, red light, white light, general understanding of land nav, and it also necessitates accurate locations of yourself and your target. Because if you are off and you're calling for fire, unless you have some dumb luck, you're gonna miss.
Well, even if you're just calling a shot,
Correct.
right? Just as a marksman, if you're calling your shot and you hit the wrong ridge line, then you're you're dreaming,
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to put a round on target if you can't accurately describe where your target's at, especially by using map.
right?
So,
So go for it.
okay, pretty simple, pretty simple instructions for this. Number one, plot your location. Number two, plot the target's location. Uh, lay down a piece of paper right in line with those two. Make a couple tick marks at your location, your target's location. There's your distance. Take that piece of paper down to the scaled bar graph on your map, and Bob's your uncle. There you go. There's your distance.
Super quick, super easy. Does need a solid map. So talking about like a Caltopa map, USGI map, whatever,
Mhm.
forestry map, whatever. And the reason why that is so accurate is because those have a standard of accuracy
Yes.
that they have to uphold to. So that's why it's a good method. Like you said earlier, the only thing I don't like about that is that you have to have a map on you of your current location all the time, and you need to know, you know, where you are and where your target is. So if you're setting up like an ambush, perfect. Go for it. That's awesome. You know where, generally where the bag is going to be, and you'll be able to do your thing. If you're doing this on the fly, not as fun.
No. Time is of the essence there.
Yeah. And 100-meter method. This is my go-to. Honestly, I call it the football field method.
Yep.
But uh, before we go into this, we know 100 meters is not the same as 100 yards. 100 meters is
Correct.
technically equal to 109.36 yards. For the Americans, our biggest audience, for familiarity's sake, it's close enough.
It
I'll
is
take it.
close enough.
So
Oh,
that
dude,
disclaimer, because I know someone was gonna say it. I know someone was gonna say it.
I
So
know.
I just had to throw it in there.
As anyone outside of the US will say, Americans will measure things in everything but the metric system, and
In
that is
any
true.
other way.
I will measure out distance in hamburgers before I will measure it out in meters.
I won that right. So pros to the football field method. Super quick, super easy, no
Oh my
equipment
god,
needed.
yes.
Pretty much anybody who's been on a football field can do it. Um, Cons only useful to about 500 meters. That's about as far as you're gonna be able to push that out to with a good degree of accuracy.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to visualize a football field. So for our audience who is not fortunate enough to, live and grow up in the United States, then you're kind of SOL. Unless you've been here. In which case,
I
good for you.
mean
Yay.
I mean, soccer field is fairly close to a football field, if I remember right.
That's fairly close. At this point you're eyeballing it. You're not gonna
Yeah.
get like down to the meter. But
No. No, 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 no.
uh like you said, quick and easy steps. So you're going to ID your target, and then you're going to imagine how many football fields you can be to fit between you and the target. That's it. And at some point, you're just gonna be able to eyeball. You won't really have to like bracket it out. But yeah, quickest, easiest way I've been able to teach it to somebody.
I
But
mean,
you have to
it
be
works.
familiar
Works.
with, with that unit measurement.
Yes. Oh god, yes. So next one is your appearance of the objects. Pros of this, it's fast. It's very fast. Don't even need any equipment. Cons, this is only reliable out to 700 meters and closer, obviously, and it's a perishable skill.
You need to have this down pat, practiced.
hmm Practice, practice, practice. How do you practice? Take a humanoid target out into the woods, or you can use the handy dandy um, easement lines with those gigantic high voltage power lines. Clear area, measure out distance, and just kind of set out some targets and just practice that way. It's fairly easy.
Yeah,
Or
the
find a
idea of the appearance of
field.
object is how well your eyes can perceive the
hmm
target. How clear the
Yeah,
target is a good guesstimation of how far away it is.
right. Unless you're trying to measure out midgets versus giants, like it's the acquisition and the recognition is going to be very very quick as long as you have practiced this kind of thing. So the a humanoid target at 200 meters, it's pretty clear in detail. You can see basically everything on that. At 300 meters, you get a clear body outline, you get the face color, but the remaining details are getting a little blurred. It's pretty far out there. It's a full football field. Actually, no, that's 3 football fields. What am I saying?
We just
A little
talked about
over,
that.
actually. I know, we just talked about this. I was thinking in yards.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
I was thinking of yards. My brain is fried right now, but sorry about that, people. At 400 meters, you get a clear body outline, but you're not getting much else. Everything else is a little bit blurred. That's a pretty far distance. At 500 meters, the body shape is tapered. It looks thinner. It's narrower. It's smaller, and the head is pretty indistinct from the rest of the body. At 600 meters,
it's a
I mean,
blob.
good luck. The body's a wedge shape, and the
It's
head
like
is just not
I think that's a
there.
person.
I think that's a person. Just do a warning shot just to be sure.
Oh gosh.
Uh, yeah. Side note, just depending on your skill level, this method could be utilized on other targets. So if you get the general idea of how big a vehicle is, or buildings, or signs, it's very good skill to have
It's
to
a
be
more
able to
niche one.
instantly. Yes, it's like I remember Sergeant M talking about the license plate method
We'll talk
about being
about
able.
that.
Yes, that's a crazy one, and I love that method.
That's my favorite. It's so freaking cool. Oh, all right. Bracketing. So pros once again, fast, hella fast. No equipment
I love.
needed. Cons. Uh, if you have inaccuracies, which you probably will, they're going to compound with distance. So it's going to
Mhm.
get worse as you go. And it requires accurate range of 2 or more points. So the idea is you're going to ID your target. You're going to determine the nearest point or points of interest. And then you're going to assume that your target is somewhere in between these two distances. So this is where like TRPs come into place. So TRP, target reference points. So if I'm stepping in a building, I'm looking down a street, and the stop sign is 50 meters away from me, and the blue car is 200 meters away from me,
Mm.
and my target is starting at the blue car and coming towards the stop sign. I know those two distances, so I'll be able to rationalize as he moves about where my target is. So it requires 2 more. If the more points of interest, the more points that you have clocked, the better, obviously. But once again, very fast. That's just mental gymnastics, and off you go.
Speaking of mental gymnastics, I'm glad this one fell to me. Um, the flash to bang method. As a kid, I was growing up on the farm. I was always taught to estimate the distance of a storm based on the lightning. You
Yeah.
see the lightning strike, and you start counting. And once you hear the thunder, the number of seconds is how many miles away the storm is. This is very similar. So
This
the
this
flash to
is that
bang
method.
this is that method just in a very pretty much just as dangerous, if not more dangerous type of situation. So the pros of this, it's very fast. There's no equipment needed. It's very easy to come up with a distance on this. The cons, the accuracy is dependent on your count of the seconds. And definitely the more negative of the cons, someone's going to have to be shot at or fired upon for you to be able to use this method. So you're
In this context, it's not great.
no, this is not great at all. So what you do, just like the lightning strike to thunder method, you're going to be
Oh,
counting the
yeah.
seconds.
Sorry,
Go
can I jump in really quick?
do it.
So I just realized so in the show notes I put down the explanation of this at the end, but people are probably wondering like why the hell this works. This works because sound travels at about 330 meters per second. It's technically 343 meters per second. But from the time that you see the flash, as you're counting seconds, right? The sound is traveling to you. If you're
Mhm.
at a distance where you're able to perceive the sound, right? So if you see a flash and you hear the bang in 3 seconds, it's about a click. If you hear it in about 5 seconds, it's about a mile. Same
For
deal. When I was a
uh,
kid, I would count for the lightning, but
mhm,
that's why this works. Is because
yes.
we're going off of the speed of sound.
And for those of you who are not familiar with the term, a click is a kilometer.
You got me on that one. Yeah,
And for those of us Americans, what the is a kilometer? Anyway,
doesn't matter. It's the smaller font on my
y-
speedometer. It doesn't matter.
listen, history began in 1776. Everything before that was a mistake. Anyway, what you're going to do is you're going to count the seconds between the time you see a weapon flash and when you hear the bang. So obviously you gotta be shot at. You gotta see the flash, the muzzle flash. Start counting immediately. Start counting your seconds. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, so on until you hear the bang or the snap, whatever. If you must count higher than 10, just start over at 1. Keep track of the tens. So 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 20, etc., etc., etc. When you have that number, multiply it by 330. Just to keep it simple, 330. The product of the approximate distance in meters, the product is the approximate distance in meters to your target. If you want to get really technical about it, multiply it by 343 if you have the brain power and the wherewithal to do it. Because if you're getting shot at, 330 is sufficient. It gets you in the
Very
neighborhood.
sufficient.
Because, like you said, sound does travel at 343 meters per second. But in this case, we're just estimating it at
I was
330.
gonna say at that point I would just divide that by three. I would just count the clicks so that I Kentucky windage that.
You're correct.
Honestly, like that's
Yeah,
yeah.
$100%.
If I am going to flash to bang method, like it's just gonna have to work.
If we're doing flash to bang method, things have gone completely sideways, and
These are
I'm
so bad.
I'm probably just going to be lobbing rounds anyway. I'm just I'm gonna guess, and I'm gonna go from there.
I'm gonna make an educated guess.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by Blackbeard Firestarter. Blackbeard Firestarter has been our first choice in Firestarter since they introduced their Firestarter rope years ago.
Blackbeard offers their fire starters, their fire plugs, arc lighters, ferro rods, stormproof matches, Everything you need to get a fire started.
Their products are made right here in the US, wind and waterproof, have an insane burn time. They're basically dummy proof.
And to help you out, Blackbeard let us cherry pick from their store everything that we want, everything that we thought you needed to get a fire started, and we call it our Hard Time Strong Men Fire Kit. On top of that, they're also offering a 15% discount on anything in their store when you enter code STRONGMEN at checkout.
We can't recommend Blackbeard enough. They stand behind their products, and so do we.
Be sure to check them out at blackbeardfire.com and on Instagram at blackbeardfire. And as always, stay in the fight.
Stay in the fight. And now a word from our newest sponsor, Granite Rifle Group. Granite Rifle Group is a precision rifle company owned and operated by a USMC veteran. You've probably heard him on our show.
Granite offers turnkey rifle solutions built around your field use with plug and play upgrades available to tailor your rifle for your specific needs. GRG offers simple rifle kits or complete custom builds available to suit every need, from the weekend target shooter or hunter to the long range precision rifleman.
Granite Rifle Group is all about putting high quality precision rifles into the hands of Americans to extend the reach of the American rifleman. And when you use the code STRONGMEN at checkout, you'll get 6.9% off your order. Nice.
Nice. Check them out at graniteriflegroup.com or find them on Instagram at granite underscore rifle underscore group underscore LLC. And as always, stay in the fight.
Stay in the fight.
And we're
And
back.
we're back.
All right, guys. So, like we said earlier, we're going to go into the whys. Oh, no, sorry. That works in my neurospice brain. That doesn't work for any of you because you're just listening. But let's go into the mill relation formula. So, pros, highly accurate. It can be used at
Stupid
extended
accurate.
distances, and it can be used for a wide range of targets. That's what I was trying to tie into with the license plates and everything.
Yes.
But anyways,
I knew
we'll
we'd
talk
get
about
there.
it. We get there eventually. Cons, it requires a mill edge reticle, it requires knowledge of the general size of your target, requires math, and it requires practice for accuracy. So the method, you're going to ID your target, you're going to get in a steady body position because you're going to be using your reticle. You're going to adjust your scope for magnification and clarity, match the scope cant to the cant of the target, and you're going to get your mill reading. The mills are the little dots, if you can
Yeah.
think of like a military style scope. The lines, the dots, each one of those dots is a mill, or each one of those tick marks is a mill. And then you're going to use your mill relation formula, which is your size of target in inches times 25.4 equals your constant. So a constant can be annotated for future calculations. Example, a human silhouette, a government license plate, government sign, whatever. We're freaking about the license plate thing is because we were talking with a couple sniper buddies of ours, and we were talking about the middle mission formula and everything. But on a previous deployment, what these guys did was they took down the measurements of the government plate for the country they were in, and then they plugged that into their dope book.
So
And
smart.
that just, it's so simple, but it just blew my mind. It's like, oh, holy crap, that's good. Because you could, you may not be able to, mill your target or whatever, but, if you have a parked car, if you're just, setting up a range card or you're set in position for an ambush or, whatever, you can, go around and plug distances. No sweat. But that was just a really cool application.
So one thing that you need to keep in mind too is you may not have um, a MIL.scope. scope. You may have an MRAD. You may have milliradians, and that's a different calculation altogether.
Absolutely.
Kind of a pain, but it is what it is.
Very much pain.
So let's see.
Um,
You
and then, like I said, you're going to divide the constant by the mill reading, height or width. You're going to round that to the nearest whole number, and that product is going to be the range to your target in meters. So this is where so in my little I don't know where it is. In my little green book somewhere, I have the average width and height of a human silhouette or a human torso for use on Mildot scopes. And you can do that, like I said, for license plates. You can do that for, whatever will be standardized in your area.
Yeah. And we definitely won't go into the conversion between mil-dot and milliradians just because that's a lot of math. And I'll be honest, that's not this episode. That's just
Well,
not
and the
this
thing is,
episode.
well, Mildot is more prevalent than MRAD as
It,
well.
it really is.
If you have a scope, it's probably going to be in Mildot.
It is.
Just honestly, because it's easier to use.
Unless, yeah, unless you're a psychopath and you get an MRAD freaking scope, which why would you?
Like a weirdo.
Yeah, definitely a weirdo. All right, so range cards. Pros here. These can be passed to and used by multiple observers. It's a quick snapshot of the observer's point and field of view. The cons of this, it is time intensive. You want to be highly accurate on everything, and you're going to be taking accurate distance readings to different points. So the range card is really only accurate from the observer's specific location. You can't take this and move it uh, 20 feet to your right and 5 feet back. It's not going to be accurate at that point.
Well,
It
you can't
requires,
move your position. You can't pass off to somebody who's going to be in a different spot. It is right
yeah,
where you're at, where you're observing. That is the only way, the only place that it's useful.
exactly. It requires a basic level of artistry and penmanship for others to use. Because if you can read your handwriting, but no one else can, it's pointless. So we'll do an episode on range cards in the future, and we may actually have range card downloadable for you guys.
What?
Oh
In
no!
the works.
All right, yes, definitely works. Oh, so you're gonna have to annotate pertinent information. So grid locations, weapon system in place, the date, the time, if you want to. You're gonna
Well, it
label your
depends.
left.
So if this is for you, obviously you're, a good grid location, whatever weapon system you're using. If this is for anybody else, you could have range cards that interlock. So hey, this
Mhm.
position number one, number five, number, whatever, your unit information, etc.
Yep. So you're gonna label your left and right limits of observation. You're going to draw points of interest and additional information for orientation. So that could be trees, that could be buildings, it could be a cow, that could be a dead body, it could be any number of things.
Car,
Whatever,
barn, building,
yeah,
whatever.
whatever you're going to use um, to be able to quick reference a distance. You're going to need to acquire the azimuth and distance for each of those points of interest. If you're drawing it on that map, you need distance and direction for each of them. You're going to want to draw target reference points, TRPs, and you're going to want to also acquire azimuth and distance for each of those because, I mean, you need to be able to look quickly at this range card and instantly know the distance to all of your TRPs, so all of your points of interest. That
Absolutely.
way, you can communicate that either to hire or with someone else.
Right.
Hey, there's somebody moving over at this cow that's laying down in the field that's probably dead. Distance is 323 meters. What do you got over there? Can you locate this guy over there? Yep, I got you. It's 270 meters from us. I see the guy. Gotcha. Roger.
Well, exactly. So airline centers fire TRPs. So just standardized stuff so
Hmm.
that, you know, all that communication, you're breaking down the time it takes for you to figure out what everyone's talking about.
Yes. Oh, dude, get us into the. Ah,
Laser
yes.
rangefinder,
Yes.
the Gucci,
The
the
Gucci.
most consistently accurate resource available for measuring distance. It can even go out to extreme distances. Cons of the rangefinder, it does require the rangefinder, which can be bulky or heavy or expensive, stuff that you don't want to give your kid or private or whatever. And it does produce a electronic signature that is visible on the modern battlefield.
I will also say this: laser rangefinders are accurate in two ways. Number one, it's it's probably going to be more. I'm trying to remember. I believe they are more accurate at extreme distances off of reflective surfaces than they are off of non-reflective surfaces. So say
I
you're
buy that.
y- if you're ranging, say, a mirror at 1,400 meters, it's going to be accurate versus if you're ranging a deer at 1,400 meters. Like you're either not going to get a reading or you're going to get a totally inaccurate one.
So, how to use it? Aim your rangefinding device at the center mass of the target, press the button, get your reading. It's literally point and shoot.
It's basically dummy proof.
Although we will say that no device is infallible, and you absolutely need to have other resources and techniques available to you. Do not rely solely on equipment.
I will
That
say
will never end well for you.
if you have a laser rangefinder, you well better have a map.
Mm.
I'm just going to say it. If you have to ask why, well, screw it. If you are asking why, it doesn't matter if you can laze and get the range on something if you're trying to relay distance and direction to someone else who's not standing directly next to you. It doesn't matter how far it doesn't matter how far that target is. You got to be able to relay distance and direction, especially from your OP. This is
Right.
very pertinent information, especially when it comes to calling for fire.
God, you know what? We should do an ATAC episode. I just saw that.
We're gonna have
Like blue
to.
force tracking,
Hmm.
especially with ATAC being so prevalent now, civilian side, like guys are getting into it with mesh tastic, with drones, with all sorts of crap. Like that'd be a fun episode.
Yes. Oh my God, lasing from a drone. Jesus, because then you have GPS location plus the range. Oh my God,
Hmm.
that thought just came to mind. That's ugh, sickening. So that brings us to the combination method. This is probably going to be your most accurate method available to you. And this is used to confirm accuracy of individual methods. Like we were just talking about. If you have a laser rangefinder, have a map. Be able to call out distance and direction and secondary, confirm that distance. The only downside here really is the time suck. I'm not even going to count requiring the use of two or more methods as a con because
That's what
really
the method is.
you're confirming you're confirming your first your first read. Like I don't care how many times you laze a freaking target, like that's still one method.
Right.
That could still be off. Have another way of confirming what you just did. So obviously, you're going to range a target by any one method. And like we said, you're going to obtain the range to the target a second time by different means. And then you're just going to compare the accuracy or the difference between the two products and take the weighted average of the two methods, unless you know sure one of them is incredibly on point. like beyond the shadow of a doubt, this is accurate. You're still going to want to take the weighted average if you're not sure, and use the product of the weighted average to determine the distance. So if speed is not a factor, the combination method is your go-to for accuracy and confirming your ranging methods.
Right. Yep. So if you're set up in a position, if you've been there, if you're going to be there a while, if you're working with, multiple other parties, this is the go-to because it's going to be your most accurate.
Hmm.
So if you have
Yeah.
someone lazing with a rangefinder, if you have somebody on a mill reticle, if you have somebody, bracketing on already known points, you're going to get it's giving you a clearer picture, a more holistic picture of the range. And it's, confirming. So if you have someone doing mill dine, you have somebody bracketing or footballing or, whatever, and then you have someone, on the rangefinder and you all get the same answer, then okay, cool, my rangefinder works.
Yeah.
So then you don't have to do that every time. You're
Right.
confirming that your methods work.
Right.
So,
And it can also be used to disprove someone else's method. So say someone has a range card and they have it
mhm,
out something out at
absolutely.
this, but then you do a map method or a laser range find method, and you have two different methods coming up with the same distance versus the range card. I mean, obviously that range card's wrong. I mean, same thing can be said of say using a map bracketing versus a laser rangefinder. If that laser rangefinder is off and the other two are the same number, I mean, obviously it's really just for confirmation. That's what it is.
Yeah. Or if you have rangefinder and you already have known distances, so you're bracketing, and then you have someone calling out, distance that's like 200 meters off, you can be like, no, dude, you suck. Like,
Yeah.
get better at this.
Yes.
And
Do it
it
again.
just it just keeps you in check.
Do it again.
Do you have anything else for this one, man?
No, not really. This was pretty fairly in depth. We kind of went through this pretty quick, but I mean,
So we covered like 9 points, so I feel like
yeah.
we got the picture. So
I mean, what? So by far, what is your go-to method here? Like, what is your most common method?
I instinctually do the football field.
Okay.
I don't even think about it. Like that is just the one that I just do.
Okay.
That's my go-to every time. If I have time, if I have a scope available, I'll do MilDot
Okay.
just because I just love the formula and it's
Yeah.
accurate.
Yeah.
But if I'm just eyeballing something, I do the football field method.
Okay. That makes sense. I living down in Florida, I find myself doing the flash to bang method more often than not,
Good old Florida.
just because I'm trying to figure out how far away the storm is.
It's like,
And
is the hurricane here yet?
you're right. Exactly. I mean, otherwise,
Show me on the map where the tornado hurt you.
thank God for those ancient Indian burial grounds off the coast that are keeping us safe, allegedly. But no, I mean, my secondary method is always my laser rangefinder. I love my laser rangefinder. It's just it's awesome. Like I
Just say
carry
if
on
I
in my
had one, I'd use the crap out of it. Don't get me
oh yeah.
wrong,
Oh, I
but
do. I've killed 2 batteries with it. I know the distance to my neighbor's house down to the meter, uh, it throughout the entire cul-de-sac. Like,
that is something we didn't talk about that, but I love that for laser range fires. If you know that you're accurate, if you know you got a solid piece of equipment, I use the hell out of that thing because you could make range cars, sector sketch anywhere you go,
oh, yeah.
and be set up. So
Oh, yeah.
like hunting, like so it's talking about the book, right? So hunting, if you're set up in a spot or in a location, 5 minutes, bam, 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 nail everything down, and
Yeah.
then you have so much information to go off with that. They're
It's
they're
so
they're
quick.
they're wicked cool.
That's another thing, I don't think we put that in there as a pro. It's incredibly fast. like
Hmm.
dumb fast. Like you literally pull it up, you line it up, you click a button, and it's there.
And most of the time, it has the reading like as you're looking around. It's just when
Yes,
you click it, it
it
snapshots
holds it.
that distance.
Yep,
But yeah, no, they're freaking cool, man.
it does. There is an argument that can be made that relying too much on technology will lessen your ability to visually estimate because you're just going off of it and it's there. You're not doing the calculations in your head at all anymore. You're relying on this piece of technology. So there is an argument to be made for that. So
1000%. I agree with that. It's the
I,
same thing as a GPS.
right,
The more you rely on the
exactly.
GPS, the less than you rely on yourself to remember where you're going.
Eh, and
All
that's
these
why
soft
we
skills.
yeah, that's always why we emphasize skills over gear because I mean your batteries could die on your laser rangefinder, and then what? Like if you can't estimate any other way, like you're screwed. You're screwed. So definitely practice other methods. Definitely have an understanding of all the other methods. That way you're not just like SOL when you need it.
Right. Well, think of all these skills as contingencies.
Yes.
I have my laser rangefinder. Yay. I'll use that. Oh crap, that went down. Well, I have my scope. I can use the motivation for it. Oh crap, that went down. I can eyeball. I can eyeball in three, four, or five different ways.
Hmm.
And if it's dark, well, crap, I can't eyeball it. Flash to bang. I mean, there's use these in layers. It's like
Hmm.
security. Good security is layered. Do the same thing for your four pillars. I think that the rule of three, having one primary, then two alternates or two contingencies, should be a standard for all of your skills. You should be able to do any one thing three ways, unless if it's hyper specific, just to have those contingencies in place, just to have that security in place.
Yeah, if you're not doing it that way, if you're not having secondary and tertiary methods of anything, you're doing this wrong. Be prepared. Like just personally, I just assume my first method is going to not work. So I always have backup methods, whether it's creating a fire, measuring distances, cooking food,
Purifying water.
purifying water. Thank you. Creating
I was gonna say
shelter.
your I was gonna say your first method is like your perfect world in my
Yes,
at least in my mind. I'm just like, yeah, but it's not a perfect world. So of course I'm gonna lose it.
right.
So no, 1000%. But that's all I've got for it. You got anything else?
No, man. That's all I got.
No. Guys, this was Rangefinder. We're the Hard Time Shawman podcast, training of a bear class of man. Stay in the fight.
Stay in the fight. And for those of you who are patrons, stay tuned for your post show. Check out our Discord, where we talk about all of the topics that we talk about in our conversations, but in deep dive format. We have a lot of members on there of varying skill sets, of varying proficiencies, all talking about all these topics, sharing their experiences. So join today and help us expand our knowledge base.
And check out our Patreon. Our Patreon, outside of just backing up all of our episodes for when we eventually get canceled, our patrons get access to our exclusive episodes, our pre-shows, our post-shows, our little tidbits here and there that we aren't really supposed to talk about. We're also opening up all of these exclusive episodes for people to individually purchase. So you don't have to get tied into a tier in order to get all that content. You can dip your toes in a little bit, decide you like it, then come and join us on that. We're having exclusive conversations, and along with the Discord, we are just building that community, building that skill set, that mastery, these proficiencies, and This, outside of our sponsor, is what's keeping the lights on and keeping all of this information, all these classes rolling for you guys. So make sure to check out our Patreon. And one last thing, guys, the world is better with you in it. If you're feeling suicidal or if you're in crisis, dial 988 or reach out at 988lifeline.org to get help. Someone's always on the line. So if you need a lifeline, remember 988. Stay in the fight.
Stay the fight.